As recently as 2024, Forbes Health released a survey that found 78% of adults who've been using dating apps in the past year said they felt emotionally, mentally, or physically exhausted by them at least some of the time. Here are a few of the biggest reasons that stood out. 40% said they couldn't find a good connection. 35% said they were disappointed with the people they had been meeting, and 27% said rejection was contributing to their burnout. If you've been dating lately, some of these may sound familiar to you, especially if you've been using the apps. You've been talking to someone new and you're wondering if you're doing too much to keep the conversation going, or something they said feels a little different, and now you're trying to decide whether they're losing interest in you or whether you might be reading too much into it, right? Then there's that question of pace. When do you meet up? How much do you text? When are you comfortable inviting somebody to your place? How much access do you really want to give somebody that you barely know? That's a lot to think about before a relationship has even been made official, I think. And after you've gone through some version of that with several different people, dating can start to feel like work. You can want a relationship and enjoy companionship and still be completely open to meeting someone new while at the same time still being tired of the whole dating process. Today, I want to take a look at where some of that exhaustion comes from, along with the habits and reactions we can pick up along the way without even realizing it. Hello and welcome. I'm Jasmin, a certified hypnotherapist. On this channel, we explore how the mind works, why we develop certain habits and tendencies, and how hypnosis and hypnotherapy can help us create meaningful, lasting change. Let's get started. I think it helps to separate wanting an official relationship from enjoying dating, right? So those are two very different experiences. Think about everything that happens when you meet somebody new. You're learning who they are while they're still learning who you are, right? You're figuring out whether you actually enjoy talking to them, whether you have enough in common, whether you want to keep it going at all. And there's attraction to think about. Communication, lifestyle, values, availability, whatever happens to matter to you. And at the same time, you're probably aware that they're evaluating you too. The connection either develops further or it doesn't. If it doesn't, eventually you meet a new person and start that whole dating process all the way over again from square one. And there's nothing strange about getting tired of doing that. It is a lot. What I find more interesting is figuring out which parts are actually wearing you down. That can tell you a lot more than simply saying, I hate dating. The number one reason people gave in that Forbes Health survey was that they couldn't find a good connection. So I can understand why that would become exhausting. You can have a conversation that dies after a few texts. You can talk to somebody for several days and realize there really isn't anything here. You can enjoy the conversation and finally meet in person and discover that whatever seemed promising online doesn't translate at all. Then every so often, somebody does seem promising. You look forward to hearing from them. You become curious, where might this go? You start giving the connection a little more of your attention and time. And then you find something that changes how you feel. Disappointment was a second major reason people gave in that Forbes survey, and I think that makes sense too. The more interested you are, the more of a letdown it could be when you realize the connection isn't going anywhere. Total disappointment. Then rejection adds another layer. You might decide somebody isn't right for you, or they may decide they don't want to keep seeing you. Sometimes they tell you directly, and other times their interest gradually fades, or they eventually ghost you. If you still want a relationship, eventually you go back to the dating app and start over with somebody new. After enough rounds of that, you might even start questioning yourself. You wonder if you're being too picky, or whether you should have given someone more of your time, or whether your standards are just maybe too high. Those questions aren't necessarily bad. We all reconsider things. Where it can get difficult is when dating exhaustion starts wearing down your judgment And you begin talking to yourself and talking yourself into situations that you already know are not going to work out. You may not have genuinely changed your mind at all. You may be simply tired of starting over. Another part of dating that can get tiring is how much energy a conversation actually requires. You notice that you're asking most of the questions and introducing new topics and keeping things moving. At first, you might not think much of it. No biggie, right? People communicate differently. One person may be naturally talkative, while someone else may be a little more quiet. Sometimes people like texting throughout the day, and some people barely text at all. But eventually you can tell when you're doing all the heavy lifting in hopes of keeping that interaction alive. Unclear communication creates its own kind of work. Maybe somebody who normally responds right away starts taking a little longer. The vibe feels different. They say something that leaves you questioning what they actually meant. The conversation ends, but you're still thinking about it. If you've gotten used to feeling responsible for keeping a connection going, silence can make you uncomfortable enough that you immediately do something about it. You send another message, come up with another question, or try to pull the conversation back together. You can also get used to looking for clues whenever things start to feel uncertain. You start watching for changes, wondering whether rejection is coming. At the same time, it's worth paying attention to what actually is happening in the interaction. Maybe just a little more detail might help. A conversation can genuinely be one-sided. The person may actually be inconsistent, and you might be really spending way too much time and energy trying to understand somebody who isn't communicating clearly. Then there's the question of how much access you want to give someone while you're still getting to know them. This comes up constantly in dating. You're deciding how often you want to talk, when you want to talk, and when you want to meet, how much of your schedule you're initially willing to rearrange. At some point, you also have to decide when you're comfortable inviting someone into your home or you going to their home. As the connection evolves, there are decisions about your personal life, emotional intimacy, and physical intimacy too. We can't forget that. Everybody doesn't move at the same pace. You might really like somebody and still need time. You may want a relationship and also value your me time, your routine, and the life you already have. Things can become harder when you know what feels comfortable, but you have trouble saying it. Somebody wants to meet somebody sooner than you do, and you agree. Then they want more of your time than you would normally give, and you keep up with it even though it's really starting to drain you. Eventually, you may notice that you're making decisions based more on whether they might lose interest than on whether you're actually comfortable. If that keeps happening, it can become useful to notice what you might expect to happen if you say no, slow something down, or tell someone what you really prefer. By this point, you can probably see why two people can both say dating is exhausting and mean two very different things by that. One person may be tired of repeatedly meeting people and not finding a good connection. Someone else may be putting too much energy into the conversations that don't feel mutual. Another person may spend a lot of time trying to figure out what somebody means every time their communication changes and they switch things up a bit. And someone else may know what pace actually feels comfortable to them, but then they start ignoring that. And once they notice that the person changes their interest level. So some of those experiences may simply tell you something about how you prefer to date. And maybe you like direct communication, or texting all day doesn't work for you. Or maybe you need more time bringing someone into your home or rearranging your whole life and schedule around them. That information is actually very useful, but there's other times when you notice yourself responding in a way you don't really want to anymore. You know you don't want to keep carrying a one-sided conversation, but you keep trying anyway. One strange text comes through, and immediately your mind starts preparing for rejection. You want to tell somebody, I'm not ready for that yet. And the guilt or anxiety that shows up is almost immediate. And that's where the experience starts to move beyond preference and into something that may have become automatic. You start doing these automatic responses because you've done it so many times, right? This is where subconscious learning can come into the picture. Dating, it gives us a lot of repetition. We do the same thing over and over. You have a conversation, you experience disappointment. People lose interest sometimes, and sometimes you get rejected. Sometimes you're left trying to figure out what in the world just happened. After enough of those types of experiences, certain reactions can start happening pretty quickly and automatically. You might start expecting communication to change before it actually changes. You may get used to watching for signs that someone is pulling away, even when they're not. You might automatically work harder when a conversation starts fading because you've gotten used to feeling responsible for keeping things going. Or you may agree to things before you're ready and comfortable because part of you has learned that saying no could mean losing the connection. You don't necessarily stop and decide to have those reactions and responses. They can start showing up before you've even had much time to think about them. And knowing that you do doesn't always mean you can immediately stop doing it. That's one reason hypnotherapy may be useful when someone recognizes an automatic dating pattern that they genuinely want to change. To give a little more background here, hypnosis is a natural state of focused attention, similar to what you may experience when you're absorbed in a movie, deeply involved in a book you're reading, or mentally rehearsing a conversation. You're still aware of what's happening and able to think, respond, and make choices. Hypnotherapy is the intentional use of hypnosis to help people work with learned and automatic responses and create changes that support what they consciously want. So, in hypnotherapy, suggestions are statements based on the changes you've already said you wanted to make, such as feeling calmer, responding differently, or strengthening a new habit, which your hypnotherapist feeds back to you during your hypnosis session. For someone who finds dating exhausting, the focus would depend on what they actually want to change in that case. If they're tired of feeling responsible for every connection keeping it going, the work may focus on becoming more comfortable with allowing the other person to meet them halfway. If uncertainty immediately sends them into overthinking or expecting rejection or the worst, the focus may involve responding differently when communication changes. Someone who's trouble stating a boundary may want to feel more comfortable saying when they aren't ready for something immediately without worrying if the other person will disappear. And if repeated disappointment has caused someone to second guess every decision they make, the work may focus more on trusting their own judgment. The point isn't to make somebody enjoy dating or convince them to lower their standards during a hypnotherapy session. It's all about working with the automatic responses they've already decided that they want to change. Because after all, we build habits, right? So hypnotherapy, you can convert those habits into the reactions that you want to have. If dating has been exhausting for you, you're definitely not alone. That 78% we talked about at the beginning tells us that this isn't an unusual reaction these days. You may have had one disappointing connection after another. It's very possible. Maybe you're tired of unclear communication or putting in more effort than the other person, or constantly trying to decide how much of yourself you're ready to give someone you barely know. After everything we've talked about today, I'll leave you with one question. Am I tired of dating itself, or am I tired of the way I've been experiencing dating? Your answer may help you look at the whole experience differently. You may realize that you want to date at a different pace. Communicate your preferences earlier. Trust that your standards are different, or put less energy into connections that aren't giving you much back. And if you recognize that you develop an automatic response along the way that you genuinely want to change, it doesn't have to remain permanent. Hypnotherapy may be able to help maybe one way to help you work with that. If you found value in today's conversation, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I share weekly content on hypnosis, personal growth, and practical ways to make meaningful change. I'm currently accepting new hypnotherapy clients, so if you'd like to schedule a personal session with me, you can find my booking information in the description below. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next episode.